going to do one of my favorite segments called House Calls. And this is where we actually visit with someone that we apparently gave some excellent advice to previously.
Don't know if we did or not, but
and we just follow up with them to see whether the advice was good, bad, taken, not taken, how it turned out.
yeah. So this past April, we spoke to a woman named Tina, a podcast listener. She's not an Allworth client. I think we have to say that for disclosure purposes, because if she is, then it could be considered a testimonial and then all the kinds of regulation stuff. Anyway, she wanted to know how much of her net worth should be in company stock, her employer's stock. So here's a clip for that call, and then we're going to talk to Tina.
My call is about company stock. And I just have a few questions about, how much of your net worth should be in your company stock? When should you start liquidating it? What are some strategies for liquidating it without paying, a whole bunch of taxes, et cetera?
This is a great question. And, I watched a movie this last year about Enron and a documentary. And these people were out in front of Enron with their boxes leaving the building with the big E on the side, screaming about how they had lost all their money in Enron stock.
Mm-hmm.
And how Enron, and I thought, the day before they had drunk the Enron Kool-Aid.
Yes. Maybe they were defrauded, but they played along as well.
That's right. So,
and then we look at people who worked for companies like Apple their entire career and are extremely wealthy, and you're like, wow, look what happens when you hold on to your company stock. Maybe you're just lucky to work for a company who does extremely well year after year, as opposed to one that.
And if you were at Apple in the first 5 years, you probably were highly disappointed in your selection, as they went through Steve Jobs and then not Steve Jobs and then Steve Jobs. So tell us your situation. What is your overall investments, and then what percentage of that is in your company stock?
Yeah, so my husband and I are later career, and we've been pretty focused and intentional savers, leveraging our company 401ks and other savings opportunities, et cetera. So we have we can retire, and we think, our financial advisor says live to well beyond 100 and not worry about it. And,
you're at that point today?
Down that path. She says yes.
Okay.
We're prepared to work for another year or two.
Okay.
Before we go.
And what's the dollar amount?
But the amount in this.
Yeah, in the 401ks, IRAs, the overall.
Yeah. So
if you put it all in a suitcase, how big would the suitcase be?
Yeah, it's about $3 million in qualified funds, another, 2 in non-qualified after tax, and then I'd say another 25% of our total in this stock, and it's a private company. And it's done exceptionally well. It has a great trajectory, but it makes me very nervous.
Do you have any liquidity option in the company? Private companies, you don't always have an opportunity to sell it.
Yeah, about twice a year they make an offer to buy back.
Okay, so the 25.
And what industry is that in?
Aerospace.
Okay, so the $5 million, $1.25 million is in your company stock. Is that correct?
No, it's an additional 25%.
Okay, thank you. Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So it's a big.
And is any of it held in an ESOP, or is it all individually held?
The majority of it is in just individually held. It's not in any tax favored status.
And there's not okay.
And how close are you to retirement?
Let's just say a year and a half.
Let me ask you this question: If the stock went to zero, would you still be able to retire in a year or two?
think we might put it out for another couple of years.
Do you want to?
But I think we could. No.
See, I mean, the concept behind diversification is it's not designed to get wealthier. It's designed to protect where you're at, right? So when we're young, working for a growing company, like, yeah, maybe I've got more in there than I was prudent, but I'm taking a chance on it. If it works out, great. If it doesn't work out, that's all right. I'm still young. When we get to retirement age, particularly when retirement's right around the corner, for most people, they're more concerned about maintaining their lifestyle than they are about becoming wealthier. They don't want to go be poor, right? That's when diversification comes into play.
What's the family income?
Right now, with both of us working, let's just say in $400,000 or $500K a year.
And so all of this is gain in this. So how old are you guys?
I just had my 59 and a half birthday.
Okay.
My husband's about 6 months older than me.
Birthday.
So six. So here's the thing that I look at too is the tax ramifications. So
Of course.
right. So if you wait until after you retire and you start liquidating these, right, dollars.
Yeah.
Is there any pension income anywhere?
No, we have IRAs and 401ks, but not a.
And your non-qualified, are there any stocks that you could sell at a loss? Anything that can trigger a loss there?
We do that when there is opportunity. We don't have anything right now.
And you don't have any loss carry forward from that.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
A little
Yeah,
bit,
this
but
is really.
nothing
I
that
gotta.
would cover this off.
This is. Oftentimes if you don't know what to do, you just split the difference, and then you're right either way. But this one, because of the tax and retirement so close.
Because if you were retiring in December of this year, we'd say, okay, the next couple of years, we're going to have a strategy of reducing your exposure to this stock, and we're not going to take any income from your 401ks or IRAs. We're going to make sure your non-qualified tax is managed in a tax-efficient manner, so we can pay a very low capital gain tax on this.
Yeah, and if your income wasn't as high as it was today, I'd be inclined to.
Right.
What's your family income today?
4 to 5. So I'd be inclined to hold it. So when you said it's 25% more, right? So you've got almost $1.5 million in it. Yeah, you got $1.5 million in it.
Times 2.
Oh.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot.
Oh. I'd start paring it down.
And how's the value today versus 6 months ago, a year ago, 3 years ago, 8 years ago?
It's like a rocket ship.
I'd start paring it down.
Just keeps on going up.
I'd start paring it down. Either that,
nothing goes straight up forever.
Either
right?
that, or I would actually pick a similarly publicly traded stock and do put options on it to give myself some downside protection.
Which is essentially, put options. You're paying a premium
that if it goes down in price, you get paid. And what you're doing there is you're trying to identify companies that are in the same industry that do the same thing that actually will help you. If that's so, you're getting a sibling stock, if you will. So you're using financial instruments that give you some downside protection, and you're paying that premium so that you can take advantage of the tax ramifications a year from now. And your advisor may or may not.
Is this aerospace company affiliated with a billionaire who has other companies?
Yes.
Oh, I'd pare it down, and I most certainly would. I would consider paring down and doing some put options on at least half of the portfolio.
Put option using what?
That
a similar stock.
There's no similarity to that company.
Just because of the guy that runs it.
Yes.
Who's
right. Brilliant.
Which is, listen, what makes you good makes you bad. Yeah. Yes. I'd pare it down.
okay.
Is your advisor saying the same?
Yeah.
It's hard to do though. It's
You made
really
so much money, but you're at the finish line now.
You're almost done.
And
Yeah.
Tina, by the way, if you sell some, it's invariably it's going to go up.
Look, I just remember the working with clients with Agilent, and what was the spinoff of AT&T back in the day? The
High Flyer. What was it? Was it
Lucent Technologies, and I sold 50% of this client's portfolio, and it went up for another year and a half, and the client couldn't get over it. And how much money they would have made
until it blew up
95%. Until it went down by 95%, right? And so he was right, and I was right. But you're so close to the finish line, I would bite the bullet, and especially if you've got a charismatic or semi-charismatic leader.
How's the value even set if it's private? Who's making up the share price?
Yeah.
And how many times earnings is the share price? The nice thing about public markets, we know what we know what buyers and sellers. When it's a private company, I would definitely look. If you were 35, like let it ride or whatever.
You're not. You're so close to the end.
Yeah.
You're so close. You're like. Yeah. And by the way, you said, "Oh, well, I could stay and work a couple more years." If this stock blows up, you might not be able to stay and work a couple more years. I mean, look at what they did with Tesla employees last week. They went to the gate, couldn't get in. 10%, depending upon the location, up to 10%. I would get rid of 50% of it. I would bite the bullet. I
would too. Immediately, next time opportunity.
Because what you said,
your capital gains that you're paying, your net's still going to be worth more than the company was worth 6 months ago.
Understand? And what changed our view on it is when you said times 2. Right? Because now it's over $2 million in that particular stock, correct?
Yes.
Oh my!
Over 3.
Probably yes.
No, not no.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
2.
All right. Well, okay. I would pair it. I'd bite the bullet.
This has been helpful. This has been helpful. Thank you so much.
It's a hard.
By the way, if you take half, you're right and wrong, right? So equally. So if you sell half and the goes up, you're like, well, I'm glad I kept half. And if it goes down, you're like, I'm glad I sold half.
So I'm 60.
Splitting the baby.
I'm 61 years of age, and I'm trying to put myself in your situation, how I would act. I'd sell half.
Yeah.
Because it's it's based on the size of your portfolio. It's meaningful. If this all went to zero, it would have an impact on your retirement.
Well, why wouldn't you just sell? Why are you waiting to retire?
Well, maybe she enjoys what she does. She likes those 11 p.m. standing meetings that Elon has that one too.
We're enjoying what we're doing. We're enjoying what we're doing. Yeah,
okay,
for sure.
I'm sure it's a really. Do you and your husband both work for the company?
No.
I'm sure it's an exciting place to work.
Yes.
It's got to be really interesting.
Sell half.
Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate
Thank
the call,
you so
Tina.
much.
Yeah, wish you well.
Wish you well.
Pat, I must say, that was interesting.
Oh, that was. I had forgotten about it, Scott. That was. Yes.
And I can imagine the value's up dramatically from where it was.
Yes.
Those chopsticks catching the rocket.
Yeah, which was an amazing thing to watch. So, Tina, thank you for joining us again.
Yeah. As you can tell, listen to the call. It's like there's no
equal.
And no. So so this was last April. It's now December. You're less than a year from retirement. What steps did you or did you not make this last several months?
Well, this is a story of the value of financial advice. So this is a plug for what you guys do, and I'm appreciative of the help. But here's basically, I think I mentioned that there are probably twice a year the company makes an offer to buy employee stock and reevaluates the stock every time they do that. So just the timing, and I think it was around August, we put in to sell a portion. about 30%. We got about 25% of it liquidated, and that was kind of in the mid-high six figures. All of it basically taxable because the basis was so low. So we worked with a team of financial advisor, accountant, lawyer, to determine a tax strategy. And ultimately, we set up a CRUT and put there was no transfer in kind. We actually had to liquidate it and take that whole hit. So we decided to take a couple other stock holdings that we've had for 15 plus years, similarly situated from the tax buildup, do a transfer in kind to the CRUT, as well as the proceeds from the company stock, to set up our legacy giving and to create a little additional source of income in retirement.
I love it.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And CRUT is a Charitable Remainder Unit Trust. And did you have a particular cause or charity already in mind ahead of time, something that was near and dear to your heart, and this was an easy one, or did you kind of have to think, like, where do we want to have these dollars go ultimately?
Yeah, well, we've been on a journey of generosity, which is really wanting to share, in our, we feel super blessed by what we've been able to do in our careers. And
are you part of generous giving? Is that where you get the terminology? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been to their conferences. And
So it was our financial advisor who said, you should think about giving from your wealth, not just from your income. And that kind of blew my mind. And here we are. So it's been a journey.
So let's walk through the mechanics, Scott, of what Tina did for the rest of the listeners. Because you couldn't take this SpaceX stock and actually move that into the trust because of how it was actually positioned.
It's not a publicly traded company.
What you did is you took something that you had a lot of appreciation, and you did the same. Therefore, you've got a tax write-off to offset some of the gain that you actually recognize in the SpaceX stocks.
If not, maybe all the way she structured this.
Yes, in the same calendar year, and then in doing that, you also provided a little bit of a stream of income. You still have to have a charitable intent. Don't think that
otherwise it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. So people come in all the time like, oh, my friend did this, and they get all this money, and they avoided all this taxes. And I'm like, if you don't have a charitable intent, it doesn't.
And not everyone has charitable intents.
Yes, but what you did is you used the tax code to your advantage and fulfilled. You and your husband had to feel great about this. I gotta believe, right?
Yes. It's like I would have never imagined that this would be something that we could do. And we're so excited about it.
I'm so happy for you.
So are our kids. Our kids are, completely on board. So that's the good news.
Have you involved your children in the giving at all? In selecting the charities?
So ultimately they will have some say in after we're gone in terms of where it goes. We have it kind of categorized, but there's some flexibility in terms of specific charities that they may want to give to. But we raise them with the idea that the concept of a tithe, and that, you've been blessed with much, you bless others by giving back. So that's something that we kind of instilled.
This is a perfect call to finish the show before leading into the Christmas.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking exactly the same thing, Scott. I was thinking, and
I had no idea what the call was going to say.
Our industry is, Tina.
It's funny. I said to Pat, I said, I wonder if it's one of these stories where she sold the stock, it went way up, and then she was disappointed about that. And I said that'd be an interesting call to have, because that happens sometimes.
But then.
Well, it kind of did.
But
evaluated the stock this last week, and it went up. But we still own stock. Still own stock, and so we benefited from that. So almost like from a top cash value perspective, it looks like the stock is worth the same as it was before we made the transaction.
So I'm going to share something with you, Tina. That Scott and I have been doing this for quite some time. What you just did 20 years ago, that was for the wealthy, like really rich, to have access to attorneys and accountants and a financial advisor that would have structured that. You're wealthy, but you're not super wealthy, right? And
right.
Well, there's always someone with more.
well, it's like
You talk to someone with $100 million, they don't feel wealthy.
well,
'cause they-
it's like driving on the freeway. There's always someone in front of you. But what you said is you brought the accountant together, the financial advisor together, and the estate planning attorney together in order to structure this, right? And I'm guessing that the financial advisor was probably the quarterback of this,
Yes. Yes.
right?
you got a good advisor.
And you've got a great advisor, right? And
Yes.
it like firms like ours, that's why we bring tax and estate planning when appropriate in-house, and when it's appropriate,
And a good
we use it
advisor,
outside.
a good advisor is someone who is helps somebody get clarity on what's important to them and design the finances around that, which is different for everybody, right? For Tina and her husband, they wanted to be as generous as possible with this, more assets than they ever thought they were going to have or need, and so this is a perfect solution for her.
And what is the Generosity Project, Scott? You both mentioned it, Tina and yourself.
This was it's really fascinating. It's an organization that was founded, a foundation funded this organization, Generous Giving, to help people give, essentially, both to understand the philosophical reasons behind it, the spiritual reasons behind that, and the economic reasons behind it. And so this organization is completely funded through this foundation. So all the tools they put out in conferences and stuff, they want people to give more, but not to them.
Okay.
So it's really different because usually someone's talking about here's how to give, and they've got their own intent. Why don't you talk to our state attorneys, right? Because they want to raise their own money. This organization, they don't want to raise anything from anybody. They just want people grow in their generosity.
And Tina, had you attended one of these conferences?
I attended a small group Journey of Generosity.
Yeah, they do it over a 24-hour period.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's 2 4-hour segments over like Friday night, Saturday morning. Actually, we're going to be hosting one after the first of the year,
very
which
nice.
is another part of it, which is to help promote this message of giving generously.
Well, I am
Generousgiving.org, probably.
This was the best call of the year for me. I got just like how did we finish the year? Truly, the best call of the year, because it we didn't solve the problem, right? We just talked around it, right? But this is one of the things that a good advisor would recognize. If you were sitting in an office in any of our offices across the U.S., this conversation would have taken. It's hard to do over. First of all, it's hard to ask someone if they are generous.
You can look at the tax return.
You can look at the tax return, but
If someone's been making $250 a year and they've nothing listed on their tax return, it's a little more complicated now because most people are standard deductions, so it's not.
But it's hard to ask someone if they're generous because I've never had anyone say no. It's like if
they might feel they're generous in other areas of their life, but maybe
that's
not
right.
with their finances.
Well, finances, yeah. People ask me if I'm nice, and I always tell them yes. We appreciate the call.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so
Have a
much
great
for your
Christmas.
help.
Have a great Christmas.
You too. All right. Bye-bye.
What?
I read an article this morning. The Warren Buffett has and Bill Gates have the what do they call it? The list where the donation list. They call
You give away half of your assets.
So, the not generosity.
What do they call it? You sign a pledge for billionaires.
It's called pledge. It's called Giving Pledge. Giving Pledge is what it's called. And they talked about the 3 people that have been removed from the Giving Pledge.
Removed?
Yeah, they were asked to take their name off the Giving Pledge.
Why?
Well, one was Sam Bankman-Fried, and since he was in prison, had no more money.
FTX founder.
Yeah, it didn't seem.
He didn't have any money to begin with.
He was going to give 2 cartons of cigarettes.
Out of prison.
In prison. In a roll of toilet paper. And then the other one was a guy that some child molestation. The other one was accused of, and they asked him to take his name off. And the third guy took his name off because he embezzled a bunch of money.
But here's what I think.
They give it away when they're dying, though.
We're all going to give it away. We give away
that's
all
right.
of it.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
you can't
that's
take it with you. So it's all given to somebody at some time.
I'm having a massive party.
Either you spend it or you're going to give it away. But I was thinking the other day, like the way we'll wrap the program up here soon, but the way my trust is set up, if my wife and I died, the money that we've got going to charity, I actually use a donor advised fund that distributes it out to a handful of charities I listed over, I think it's a 10-year period. And for me, you look at some of these foundations that are 100, 150 years old.
Yes.
The causes that they support have nothing aligned to the values of the founders of those things, the people who created those foundations.
Over time,
right?
Because things change, and the foundation then, it exists for its own purpose, which had nothing to do with the founder.
Yeah, I do like the concept of saying I'm not going to. I think part of that is like I'm not going to have it all go to my kids. By the way, it's really hard to have it all go to your kids because the state taxes,
True.
and whatever you give to charity, there's no estate taxes on.
And by the way, and this is it. You might be thinking, "Oh, this is big old fat cat stuff." This is no. I mean, we have clients
very modest savings
that will have a portion go to charities while they're living or at death. So.
Yeah.